What is going on, everybody? Phil Bleckman with barbend.com, and today we are going to talk about the Titan Games Championship. We're going to recap the entire event. We're going to bring you all of the action that you may or may not have already seen, and we are going to discuss who came out on top as Season 2 Titans. But before we do, you got to smash that subscribe button. Also, tap that little notification bell, because you got to stay up to date on all things that Barbend is doing when it comes to strength sports. We're talking CrossFit, powerlifting, weightlifting, strongman. We got it all, and you're not going to want to miss out. Coming into the Titan Games Season 2 finale, there were 6 Titans competing for the title. 2 from the East region, 2 from the West region, and 2 from the Central region. In the women's division, it was Margaux Alvarez, Dani Speegle, and Courtney Roselle. And in the men's division, it was Noah Palicia, Matt Chan, and Will Sutton. The first event for each division at the finale was Hammer Down. Now, we've seen this event previously at each of the regional finals. It involves each competitor having to lift 3 boxes to retrieve a sledgehammer. They then use that sledgehammer to knock 3 pins to topple 3 poles. The third pole, which is known as the golden pole, must then be ascended to the top, at which there is a victory chain that must be pulled. First to pull it wins. The difference, though, between the finale and the regional finals, where we had seen this event before, is that at the regional finals, the first 2 competitors to pull their victory chains would advance to the next event to then compete on Mount Olympus. In the finale, however, it would just be the first. So the first competitor to pull the victory chain at the top of the golden pole would advance to Mount Olympus and send the other 2 into a tie-breaking event for the final slot on Mount Olympus. So in the women's division, Dani Speegle showed her chops right out of the gate. She takes the lead and looks dominant in this event. Alvarez used the strategy of climbing on top of the golden pole. She inched her way up to the top, and at the very last second, it looked as though both competitors pulled their victory chains simultaneously, but it was actually Dani Speegle who pulled it first. She locked in her spot on Mount Olympus to compete for the $100,000 prize and sent Roselle, who had not even been able to topple her golden pole yet, and Alvarez, who is just shy, to a battle on the Herculean Pull for the second slot at Mount Olympus. Moving over to the men's division in Hammer Down. Now, Matt Chan, the 42-year-old Matt Chan, who was the oldest competitor coming into the event, coming into the season of Titan Games, he is a firefighter, and it was clear that he was in his element when it came to swinging the sledgehammer. He comes out of the gates, he gets his sledgehammer, and he knocks in each of those pins in rapid succession. The first pin he knocked down so fast that it even caught the attention of The Rock, the host of the show, who literally said,
"That is a beast."
Not a bad thing to have the host, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, say in the first event of the finale. So Matt Chan, it's an absolute runaway for the most part. He knocks down his first pin. Sutton and Palicia, the other 2 Titans, they are maintaining parity between each other going into the second pin. Palicia, who looked as though he might catch up on the golden pole despite being at the disadvantage coming in. Sutton was struggling to get in his golden pole, but ultimately it was Matt Chan who got there first. He pulled the victory chain, and he sends country strong Will Sutton, Titan of the East, and Noah Palicia, Titan of the West, to a Herculean Pull showdown for the other slot on Mount Olympus. Back over in the women's division, we are at the Herculean Pull. Now, the Herculean Pull is a triangular pillar that has 5 poles sticking out of it, 4 silver poles and 1 golden pole in the center. Each competitor is charged with removing 2 silver poles onto their side before battling over the golden pole. They then have to pull the golden pole towards their side until they knock down a panel on their side of the arena that signifies that they have pulled it far enough to win the event. Alvarez gets to the golden pole first and gets some very large pulls that put her at a major advantage going into this final tiebreaker event. Roselle recognizes that she is falling behind. The adrenaline kicks in, she rushes up and puts a halt to Alvarez stealing this event. Although she looks as though she's about to get back to parity, she puts in some very, very big leg presses on that center golden pole to pull it back. Alvarez stays slow and steady, inch by inch, pulls it towards her side, and after one last heavy pull, she rolls Roselle off of the pillar, knocks down her panel, and Alvarez eliminates Roselle to advance to Mount Olympus to compete against Dani Speegle for the title of Season 2. Back over in the men's division, we have Noah Palicia versus country strong Will Sutton. The challenge was going to be, can Will Sutton, being the smaller of the 2 competitors, keep up? Without a doubt, right out of the gates, absolutely Sutton could. In a blistering, blistering pace for these guys. They come rushing out. They pull out their first 2 pulls. A slight hiccup, a very, very, very slight hiccup for Palicia on his second pull opens the door for Sutton to pull that golden pole uncontested and advance to Mount Olympus. Now, what is notable about the sprint, the literal sprint that these guys did on this event, is it was the fastest event in Titan Games history, from beginning to end, from that starting bell to the finish when Sutton pulled the golden pole all the way to his side. It took 19 seconds.
19 total seconds.
Unfortunately for Palicia, a valiant effort, undefeated in his time on Mount Olympus through the West region. He falls short here, but a 3rd place finish is not bad for season 2. It moves on to Sutton versus Chan on Mount Olympus. Moving back over into the women's division for Mount Olympus, we have 2 CrossFit Games competitors between Dani Speegle and Margaux Alvarez. Both of these women on Mount Olympus to this point undefeated. Dani Speegle gets a slight edge out of the starting gates and onto the box flip, and it is clear that Margaux Alvarez has a much more measured pace than Dani Speegle by the time they get to the sky bridge. The game changer for this event on Mount Olympus, they decided to add a couple of new obstacles that had previously been unseen in this event. Those obstacles were a barrier at the beginning and the end of the cage crawl. So in order to get into the cage crawl, you have to break a barrier. And in order to exit the cage crawl, you have to break a barrier. And then an additional obstacle right before the ball and chain, the second to last event, where there is a steel cage placed on top of the ball and chain. Clearly, this barrier is throwing both women for a loop. Speagle's lead is entirely undone because of this barrier, and Margaux Alvarez's entire competition is undone because of this barrier. They both start bashing away. It is Speegle who breaks through first. Alvarez is just unable to break through that barrier, whether it's the fatigue or whether it's that first broken strategy that didn't actually work out. But Speegle goes all the way to the end, uncontested, through the rest of the obstacles. She gets the Titan Tomb, she locks it in, and Dani Speegle is the Titan of Season 2. Congratulations to Dani Speegle. Unfortunate for Margaux Alvarez that she was unable to figure out a way to break through on the cage crawl, but them's the breaks. Dani Speegle, Titan of Season 2 in the women's division. On to the men's division, we have Matt Chan versus Will Sutton. Both of these guys have epic showings on Mount Olympus previously. So through the starting gate and the box flip, it pretty much mirror imaged the women's division. Will Sutton being Margaux Alvarez in this instance, he gets a head start on the starting gates. He makes his way through the box flip. A slight stumble on the transition from the box flip to the iron ascent gives Will Sutton essentially a 1 obstacle lead. Matt Chan has to replace his box before he can go to the iron ascent. It's clear that that kind of stumble essentially can be the difference maker on Mount Olympus. We've seen it over and over before. Matt Chan is fully aware of that. He picks up the pace. He speeds through the iron ascent. They both get to the sky bridge, and now we're back to parity. This is the closest race we've seen in a long time. So getting to the cage crawl, which was the undoing for Margaux Alvarez in the women's division, they both get to the barrier and recognize from having seen the women compete that it is no small task to break this open. So both men get to it. They start kicking it. Chan takes the first strategy that actually pays off effectively, where he falls to his back and starts kicking the barrier with his heel. That breaks him through first. He gets into the cage crawl first. Sutton, recognizing that his strategy of kicking it standing up isn't working, follows in the footsteps of Matt Chan, falls to his back, and starts kicking the barrier, eventually breaking it open. But now he has to make up essentially 1/3 of the cage crawl's time difference that Matt Chan is ahead. Matt Chan breaks through the barrier on the back end. He gets through the drop down. He starts working on the ball and chain. Sutton catches up, but it's clear that he's winded. He makes his way to the new event, the new obstacle on ball and chain himself, but it is Matt Chan who is able to leverage his lead after the cage crawl all the way to the finish. He gets the ball and chain to Titan Tomb, breaks open Titan Tomb, locks in the relic, and it is Matt Chan who is the Season 2 Titan champion. There you have it. That's the Titan Games Championship recap. I'm Phil Bleckman for Barbend.com, and we will see you next time.